As Dougco cleans up from the tornado, some elected leaders there make a mess of themselves trying to make this political. Highlands Ranch did not have tornado sirens. Tonight we look at why some communities in Colorado have made that choice. A suburb is trying to muscle a homeless shelter out of the trendy part of town.
I think that there's a better place for them to provide the services.
New numbers on the impact in Colorado a year after Roe versus Wade fell. And this program is adrift in search of Coloradans who can tell us something good on a Friday night. That's next. A day after a rare tornado in the metro area, today's hazards are flooding and clumsy political misinformation. Aurora firefighters rescued 2 people from an SUV stuck in rushing water just south of DIA this afternoon. One of 2 rescues in that area, they said. There is nasty flooding farther east as well. This is north of Agate in Elbert County, where creeks are running high and some roads have been washed out. Hey, kudos to the people of Highlands Ranch. They clearly heeded the warnings and took cover yesterday, because you had an EF1 on the ground for 6 miles in Highlands Ranch and not a single serious injury. Lot to clean up, though. A lot of big trees down, homes damaged, so work on that continued today. Within hours of the tornado in Highlands Ranch, Republican leaders in Douglas County began misleadingly claiming that the Democratic governor was ignoring their needs because of politics.
And then the tornado comes through.
A few hours after the tornado stopped rotating, Republicans started their spin. Dougco Commissioner Laura Thomas, Castle Pines Councilman Roger Hudson, and former state GOP Chair Christy Burton Brown suggested without evidence that Democratic Governor Jared Polis wasn't helping Douglas County because of its conservative politics. Hudson asked why an emergency declaration from the governor didn't include Dougco, writing, "Couldn't be our conservative politics, could it?" Thursday's emergency declaration covered counties damaged by severe weather a day earlier, on Wednesday. 3 of the 4 counties covered, Elbert, Lincoln, and Washington, they have a higher percentage of Republican voters than Dougco. And the 4th county covered, El Paso, has the largest single number of Republicans of any county in the state. Colorado's Office of Emergency Management pointed out to the Republican leaders that disaster declarations are issued after a damage assessment is done. And Dougco's assessment is underway now. So for all the political theater about Governor Polis following the typical process for a disaster declaration, not just announcing one instantly, Douglas County itself did not issue a local disaster declaration until this afternoon. Some places in Colorado, the roar of a tornado is joined by the wail of tornado sirens as a warning, but not in Highlands Ranch yesterday. Douglas County doesn't have tornado sirens. Leaders there have long said they don't see enough tornadoes in Dougco to warrant spending the money. Steve Stager set out to figure out how much it would cost.
Why doesn't Douglas County have tornado sirens? Is a question 9 News has been asking since at least 1998.
But nowhere in the fastest growing county in the country will you find one of these.
Back when reporters like Phil Keating wore beepers in stand-ups.
Override system through TV and radio.
The answer, pretty soundly, has been tornado sirens are expensive. On the Town of Parker's website, they say installation of a new tornado siren system in town would cost $30 million. Remember that number. There are quite a few communities in our region without tornado sirens.
It is a surprise to me.
Not what Denver Fire Captain Ahmed Nunn expected.
You know, I've grown up in the Montbello area, so anytime that there were tornadoes and sirens going off, we knew exactly what to do and where to go.
Denver has a huge network of tornado sirens.
When those sirens go off, it means that somebody has seen a tornado, and which is usually initiated by the National Weather Service.
Sirens that don't cost a lot to maintain, $2,500 for the yearly operating contract.
And then it's about $16,000 a year for maintenance parts to keep the system up and operating.
But Denver came upon these sirens pretty easily. They were originally installed by the Civil Air Patrol back in the day, a Cold War relic meant to alert folks about nuclear attack or air raid. Tornado sirens only started warning about tornadoes in the 1970s, which explains why they don't exist in a lot of newer suburbs like Highlands Ranch. The town of Castle Rock said they looked into it, found that each siren cost about $35,000, and they would need 33. In Castle Rock, that would mean about $1 million for a siren system. Remember Parker's estimate of $30 million? That would mean the town was looking at 857 sirens, or just really fancy ones. We reached out to Parker to ask about that $30 million number. They told us that was from a 5-year-old article on the website. They weren't sure of the source of it. They're going to try to track it down over the weekend, maybe get back to us on Monday about it. A few years ago, Longmont's system malfunctioned, and the Times Call at the time reported that the cost to replace it would have been about $500,000, so they just shut their system down. But after the 2008 tornado in Weld County, the county made it a priority to install a system. They got a lot of grant funding to do so as well, just because FEMA will help you out in these types of situations to pay for things like this. But the Weld County systems in multiple towns, it was something in the hundreds of thousands, not quite 30 million.
I suppose 857 tornado sirens in Parker sounds deafening.
Yeah.
Like 2 to a block.
I know. At one point, because I found another estimate, it was like 25,000 per system, and it was going to be like 1,200 of them. And I'm like, my goodness, that's a lot of sirens.
It does seem that not having them is one thing, because people know you live in Delco, you don't have sirens. You got to find out some other way if there's bad weather on the ground. But like taking a system out of a community sounds kind of dangerous, right?
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, it's there. And I've talked to some of the alert and warning people that I know quite well who say this is an important part of the toolbox because you never know when you're going to need it if somebody doesn't get a message in a different way. Like we've done a lot of reporting on opt-in systems that people don't know about, they don't sign up for. It's just another tool to let people know that something bad's happening. Bottom line, know what the warnings are in your community so you can stay safe, like people did in Highlands Ranch. They did a great job yesterday. Yeah. Steve, thank you. A judge says that Denver Public Schools can no longer hide the school board's conversation, the one where they decided to bring back armed officers. Today, a judge sided with 9 News and a bunch of other media outlets. We sued to get a copy of that executive session. The school board met a day after the shooting at East High that injured 2 deans back in March. At the time, the board said that it was going into executive session to discuss specialized security, like defenses against terrorism. 5 hours later, they walk out and they vote without discussion that they're bringing back school resource officers. The district judge reviewed the recording of the meeting and decided that it violated Colorado's open meeting laws. The board has until noon Monday to appeal or let you hear the tape. The city of Arvada has a homeless shelter in Old Town, that beautiful, trendy, revitalized part of Arvada. Our Angeline McCall examines how the city is now blocking some funding for the shelter to encourage it to move.
For many of Arvada's homeless community, they go to one place to find stability.
If I didn't have this church, I'd probably be dead or in jail or I don't know. So yeah, I'm here at the Rising Church.
Zeno,
The weather keeps changing.
comes to Mission Arvada of the Rising Church, turned day shelter
This is kind of cool.
for life's necessities.
For some people, when they look at the homeless, the dirty and the unclean, we are just nothing. Whereas the Rising Church, they see a human life.
Warm out today. The Rising Church welcomes them. The city, they say, doesn't want them here.
They just would like us to relocate.
Karen Cowling is the director, who says the city won't sign off on grant applications, essentially blocking their chance for funding.
That has put us in a really significant bind. As of April 1st, 3 of us had to go to zero pay, and we weren't being paid that much as it was.
The previous city manager 9 months ago sent this email to Cowling saying the city of Arvada has declined to support this application, adding the unhoused have become a burden to the Old Town community.
Yeah, they don't like our location. They've told us that many times. I call this a gem for the city of Arvada, this area, Old Town. Lots of restaurants and bars and activity and a lot of tax space.
I think that there's a better place for them to provide the services.
Lori Gillis says the city has received complaints about Mission Arvada.
They are not able to apply for that individual grant because we did not sign off in support, because we are being responsible to our businesses, our community, our patrons in the Old Town area.
There's a couple that don't like us at all.
Cowling says it feels like a not in my backyard mentality.
They feel like we're the reason that there's homeless people in the area.
Just things we're trying to manage, balancing the needs of all of Old Town and the needs of the unhoused.
With Mission Arvada at odds with the city, what comes next could jeopardize their operations at the cost of the people who call this place a refuge.
That's it. It's powerful. Because the only reason I'm talking right now is because of this church.
As Angeline McCall reporting, the city says it's trying to work with Mission Arvada to get them into a quote-unquote better place. Shelter says the first option it was offered was 6,000 feet smaller than its current space. A food pantry serving people in Arapahoe County, South Jeffco, Inglewood, and Denver. It looks more like a grocery store. It's called The Market, at IFCS, and no one has to pay at the checkout. Since Wednesday, you've raised more than $25,000 to support the market. And here's the best part. The nonprofit has a generous anonymous donor who is matching what we raise together, dollar for dollar. So that means that you have already generated more than $50,000 to feed our neighbors. And we're talking fresh, high-quality food, the stuff that families can make into meals that create family memories. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to join me and a bunch of other Coloradans in donating to Integrated Family Community Services. We know that your $5 donations add up because since 2020, you've raised more than $11 million for Colorado's nonprofits.
The strongest storms probably will get stronger as the climate continues to warm.
If you didn't love this last week, Colorado scientists say you really won't care for the coming years. A year after the Supreme Court removed the right to an abortion, Colorado's still seeing record numbers of out-of-state patients, and costs are adding up. And isn't it amazing what a break in the clouds can do for us? Brightened a lot of moods, makes it easier to end the week on an up note. Next. Tomorrow marks 1 year since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, striking down the constitutional right to an abortion, leaving it to the states. Colorado has some of the least restrictive abortion laws in America, and it means we're seeing patients flood in from out of state. Before the Dobbs ruling last year, Colorado passed a state law codifying the right to an abortion. State legislature passed even more protections this year, shielding patients and providers from out-of-state investigations, and essentially made Colorado a sanctuary for patients from surrounding states, in particular, Texas. Cobalt, a nonprofit that helps fund abortion procedures, say they spent $220,000 helping more than 600 out-of-state patients travel here for abortions last year. That's compared to about $6,000 the year before. Cobalt says they're on track to spend even more this year. Scientists say that hail and tornadoes are very slowly becoming more common in our state. A study co-authored by Colorado State climatologists predicts that severe weather events are on track to become more frequent and more impactful in the decades to come. In a peer-reviewed study, the American Meteorological Society, a group of researchers here predicted that severe weather patterns will continue to increase through the end of the century. They believe that the warming climate will lend more atmospheric instability. That means stronger storms. By the year 2100, the study predicts that the Front Range and Eastern Plains will see up to 3 more severe hail events and an additional tornado each year. If regional population growth holds, it means that those storms will be impacting more people.
The impacts of the hail will probably be outweighed by what happens to future population growth, to where we're building things. There's more stuff out there to hit now than there would have been, say, in the 80s when when the population along the Front Range was not as great.
The study predicts the human exposure to hail events could go up by 178% by century's end. Human exposure to tornadoes could increase by 117%. Daniel Grant, I was thinking about that with the situation in Highlands Ranch, how rare it is for us to see a tornado there. Obviously, Douglas County, fast-growing county. Yep. Sterling Ranch area is, like 20% built out? Yep. That's going to get built out. All the growth in northern Colorado.
It's amazing.
Along the I-25 corridor, where we know that tornadoes are frequent. Like wildfires, we are moving into their path.
Yep, 100%. And of course, we're going to be looking at these events just becoming more and more extreme, more numerous and more extreme. Not a great recipe, but unfortunately, those are the cards that are being dealt to us as we look at the climate continuing to change. As far as this month goes, wow, has it been a super soaker to say the very least. The rainfall amounts have been tremendous out there. We have been looking at more than 5 inches. 5 inches of rain thus far. We're not even done with the month of June. We're in the #1 spot. These storms have delivered so much water. So yes, it has been problematic in some circumstances, the flooding that we have seen. Perhaps your basement has been flooded, but look at the drought monitor. No drought across the entire state. We have not seen this picture in several years. I know it has been a wild one the past couple of days with all kinds of severe storms pushing through this afternoon into this evening. You can kind of take a little bit of a breather. Nice to have some blue skies out there. Temperature sitting in the mid-80s, pretty typical for this time of the year. 70s and low 80s up in the mountains. We are not, however, fully out of the woods. If you're traveling up toward Wyoming and Nebraska, we're looking at a tornado watch, and that's going to continue until late tonight. Severe thunderstorm watch for parts parts of southeastern Colorado, and still a few severe thunderstorm warnings going strong. Huge hail. That's going to be our biggest threat, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, downtown Denver looking good. We have this one rogue little cell tracking across Highway 85 up toward Platteville. Just some heavy rain for now. As we look at the futurecast, most of the storms moving out overnight. Tomorrow morning, we're greeted once again with more sunshine. It should be a fantastic start to the weekend and a nice, solid, dry day completely statewide. Look at this. We're going to be back to about 85 here in the city. Low 90s in Lamar and Springfield with 60s and 70s up in the high country. Get outside and soak it in. 90s on deck Tuesday and Wednesday. And right now, another round of storms rolls in next week.
It's gorgeous. Being able to live, period.
Or not, you loved this week. It was weather to love today. As we asked you to end this Friday with the best things in your life. That's next. Sunshine on the first Friday of the summer really got people out onto the water at Chatfield Reservoir. A challenging new spot for us to sidle up to folks and ask them about the good news in their lives.
3, 2, 1. My good news is today we get to come out paddleboarding in this super high water.
My good news is we found a baby hummingbird. That's right.
My good news is that my dad is getting through cancer.
My good news would be that being a Denverite and seeing all the changes to Denver and being out on this lake ever since I was 15 years old, it's gorgeous.
We're loving being on Chatfield. The water's amazing and awesome today after the crazy weather we had yesterday.
My good news is that it's finally not raining.
My good news is my big sister who lives in Chicago, her name is Elisa Singletary, just got approved to get on the lung transplant list yesterday. So she's officially on the list to receive a double lung transplant. So we are very hopeful and we are trusting in Jesus that this is going to work out for her good and be very successful. So that is my good news for today.
My good news is that the storms are finally over, for now at least. My good news is that I'm homeschooled and we always get to come out here and have so much fun.
All kinds of great perspective to close out our week. Hey, a Nebraskan has today's best take on Colorado's tornado sirens. There it is. That's your feedback, and it's next. One benefit of the heavy rain this week was the free entertainment. You don't like to watch trash cans race? Come on. All right, look up real quick. Which one are you going to bet on? Yellow or black? This is from Elizabeth. You know the drill. Off they go. Yellow has a solid early lead. Mark sent us this video. This is great stuff here. Black is closing. Black is closing. Oh, there's no room on the inside. That's it. Yellow takes it. And the trash can races. There will be more the next time it rains hard. Claudia in Ogallala, where they can get this program, writes in to say Steve Steger really made an impact when he laid out $30 million for Parker to install 857 tornado sirens. Claudia says, I spit out my water. We would hear that in Nebraska. Frank in Golden says, don't those suburbs have access to Code Red, the warning system? He says, we here in Humble Golden have it. Yep, I checked with Steger on this. He's our expert. He says they do have the opt-in Code Red system in Douglas County. It's only as good as if people opt in for it. In Boulder County, before the Marshall Fire, only 1 in 4 had opted in. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next time.